Well, it looks like the debate of the century that we were all looking forward to between Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, debating the actual definition and what constitutes anti Semitism and what America's role should be regarding foreign policy and Israel, isn't going to happen because, according to Glenn Greenwald, who broke the Edward Snowden spying scandal story, the Daily Wire obtained a court order to gag Candace. I guess technically they got it from an arbiter, which is just as powerful and enforceable as a court, because, as I mentioned before when covering the story, any one of these big personalities, when they sign these contracts with these news companies, there's an arbitration clause in the contract, which means if there's any legal disputes between the talent and the news agency, then that is done in secret. And so Glenn Greenwald caught wind of this, most likely from Candace Owens, telling him off the record, because he's not exactly someone to report on rumors, and obtain that through certain ways, through certain apps that the Daily Wire can't subpoena to, get her text messages, things like that. Glenn Greenwald knows how to communicate privately. And so he is reporting that the Daily Wire got a gag order in order to stop her from doing the debate, stop her from talking about the Daily Wire. They were also upset that she was liking various tweets. So she was trying to be careful and not, kind of reveal the obvious, what we all know about why she got fired, but she was liking certain tweets. And so that technically is communication. That is confirming that you like a certain message. And so she got threatened, or she might have even been sanctioned by the arbiter. And this all while Ben Shapiro, remember there's been a few weeks now, said on a Friday, hey, if I'll debate you, after Candace said she wanted to debate him, that he would debate her on Monday only in his studio, and if she doesn't show up at 5 o'clock, then he'll never talk to her again. And then it turned out that, and the Daily Wire knew, that she was out of the country. In response to this story, Candace only issued a statement saying that she can neither confirm nor deny what it is claiming, which, of course, is obviously a confirmation, and also did make this very interesting comment about a related story about people being silenced, saying, totally agree with this, using the court system to gag people from responding to hostile political attacks is an affront to the First Amendment. But she says she's glad this happening to President Trump, being sarcastic or kind of hyperbolic, because it is fostering a much-needed conversation. Ben Shapiro built his entire brand visiting college campuses across the country in order to debate college kids, where he crushed, owned, destroyed the teenagers. But when faced with an actual adult, he ducks his tail between his legs and runs away like this.
Your book
frankly, I don't think
that
this,
society
honestly,
is turning its back
sir,
on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah,
what are those values? What are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
Or that cowardice is not at the core of Little Ben. This is how all of these big news agencies work. The talent sells a little piece of their soul, or a lot of their soul, for the fame and fortune. And aside from having arbitration clauses in the contract to gag them if there's any disagreements between the two parties, all these contracts, of course, have NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and non-disparagement clauses. Now, an NDA is actually needed in many cases because you can't have an employee get fired and then start mouthing off about Ben Shapiro's family, where his wife works, where his kids go to school. Totally valid reasons for non-disclosure agreements. But the non-disparagement clauses, on the other hand, silence the former hosts from criticizing the former network. And that's why Tucker Carlson has not exposed Fox News. He doesn't even like the word Fox News to come out of his mouth because he is trapped by the non-disparagement clause. So the Daily Wire construed Candace saying that she wanted to debate Ben, and probably to even a greater extent, liking certain tweets as violating the non-disparagement clause of her contract, which is enforceable from now through eternity. And this is extremely disappointing because now with the House of Representatives passing that Orwellian anti-Semitism bill, little Ben and Candace would have plenty to talk about. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but sometimes us truly independent content creators and those in the alternative media have to show how accurate our track record is. So here's a brief clip that I recorded back in January of 2023. So almost a year and a half ago. This was in my report about the Steven Crowder Daily Wire beef, which rings even more true today than it did back then because, well, I was trying to tell everybody.
And this is why I've always stayed independent, because I don't want some executive producer or CEO telling me not to cover something or not to criticize someone or not report on the Bilderberg group meetings or Bohemian Grove or Operation Mockingbird or the Sun Valley Conference, or telling me that I need to just speak in weak generalities and give lukewarm takes about the wolves in sheep's clothing and the conservative movement or the cultural Marxists destroying our society. One of the points I agree with Crowder on in his video, which again I think wildly misrepresents what actually happened between him and the Daily Wire and is just a desperate money grab now that he's unemployed, was this.
They don't want a group of rebellious rabble-rousers who want to learn, fight like hell, and laugh together. You're of no value if you can't all be kept in line to some degree. I don't mean some master plan to eliminate you. Just subdue you a little bit. Just soften your edges a little bit. Just play ball a little more.
That's a good point, Stephen, but to be specific, since I never became friends with any of the phonies in our movement and I don't have any dual loyalties, I think what you mean is anyone who signs a contract with the Daily Wire, The Blaze, Fox News, Turning Point USA, or PragerU won't be allowed to criticize anything Israel does to the Palestinians. That's anti-Semitic, or how the anti-BDS laws violate the First Amendment.
Well, you get the point. And now the Twitter account Censored Men, which first broke exclusive inside information about the Candace Owens Daily Wire beef, revealing emails from inside the Daily Wire, which nobody at the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring including, denied were false or fake. And then later it turned out that it was obviously true. Now they're saying that they have a source that Ben Shapiro is working behind the scenes, and this makes perfect sense, to discredit Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Andrew Tate, who I do think is actually a clown, and Charlie Kirk. And if you just take a look at some of the stories over at Mediaite, you could see that they've been quite obsessed with nitpicking Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. Look at all these stories just recently, and Charlie Kirk, people going a little bit too far to the right. So then Conservative Inc. has to deploy their assets, their little friends in the media, in order to write smear pieces about them. And I'm not going to detail the long list of reasons I've been trying to tell you for 8 years now that Ben Shapiro should be shunned from the conservative movement, like how he amplified Michelle Fields' hoax about Donald Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, allegedly assaulting her and trying to throw her to the ground back in 2016, or how he literally said that he wanted Hillary Clinton to win in 2016 and beat Donald Trump, or how for 12 or 15 years he's been calling Ron Paul, of all people, an anti-Semite because he didn't want to give aid to Israel or any other country. Or how he was captured on a hot mic, being afraid to call pansexual people weird because he didn't want to lose sponsors. He was going to lose some money if he offended the rainbow people like that. Or how he openly said that Scott Adams was a racist and should have gotten fired, should have lost his syndication deal with Dilbert because he simply said that he preferred to live in a white neighborhood. Or how he said that Donald Trump inviting people like myself to the White House back in 2019 for the social media summit was a terrible idea. Or it was a terrible idea for Tucker Carlson to interview Alex Jones on his new show on Twitter, which then soon resulted in Elon Musk restoring Alex Jones' Twitter account. Of course, Ben Shapiro had a problem with that. But it's good to see comments from people like this who say, I used to hear Mark Dice talk about Little Ben, and I thought he just had personal beef Then I started listening to Shapiro and was bothered by what he was saying. Mark Dice was, and always is, 100% correct. Little Ben is a douche. Well, thank you, Ryan. I mean, what's next? Is Little Ben going to shill online gambling apps to his audience for some paid ad reads? Oh, wait, what's this?
We'll get to more on this in just one moment. First, football season may be over, but basketball action is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on all the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with the NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks.
Hey guys, do you want to 100x times your money? Just be sure to use the promo code Little Ben to make sure that they know that I sold you out. I sent you. Now listen, if you're into fantasy football or fantasy sports, personally, I think it's lame as hell and maybe just need to find a hobby. But it's a free country, you can do whatever you want. And it's different when it's some guys at the shop or at the office throwing money into a pool. But when you start engaging with online gambling apps, I think that's pure degeneracy. And for a popular talk show host to start shilling them in ad reads, I think is also pathetic. And while I'm sure that Little Ben and the Daily Wire management definitely are not fans of mine, it looks like not everybody over the Daily Wire hates me.
Another comment says, shout out to Mark Dice for coining the term anti-whiteism years ago. Indeed, and very useful term. And I think a term that we should start using more often.
Well, thank you, Matt. But just to be clear, I'm not laying claim to having coined the term. It's really not even an original term. It's a descriptive term. And just like you can't trademark descriptive terms because they are just words that are used to describe things, anti-whiteism isn't really an original term. It's just describing what it is that's happening. Now, of course, I obviously have popularized it more than anybody else, but I'm not laying claim to the term. I'm glad, though, that other people are finally starting to accurately describe what it is that's going on by using it. We shouldn't hold anything against Matt Walsh for not quitting the Daily Wire because they fired Candace Owens, or for not denouncing them for their censorship and gagging of her. We shouldn't expect him or anybody else really to cut off their nose to spite their face. He does some great work over there. They provide him with a great platform. They provide him with a lot of resources to do what he wants to focus on. And he does great work for the most part. And since I am a media analyst, a media critic, I'm not an ordinary talk show host who's just cheering on my team. I tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how the system works. And so I do have a bone to pick with Matt Walsh because he still hasn't addressed atrazine or the endocrine disruptors and the likely factors that they play in causing transgenderism. So there's always room for improvement, Matt. Oh, and by the way, did you see this photo? I know it looks like a meme, but this is actually a photo. I posted this on my locals page, which you should join, by the way, by clicking the link in the description below for $5 a month, because that's where you get all the exclusive content. But this is real. This is Elon Musk outside of the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland with his handler, Ben Shapiro. Back in January, after he responded to somebody posting something on Twitter that was deemed anti-Semitic, he went on an apology tour by literally touring the concentration camp, which is extremely bizarre. Even more bizarre is having Ben Shapiro be there with him as his handler. Tell us, Charlie, since you're being pretty based these days, as the kids say, what did Elon do that caused him to have to go on this apology tour with his handler?
Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now,
I didn't say it. Charlie said that.
I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true the Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact,
you could see he almost didn't say it, but then he just went all in. Charlie Kirk, you know that I've been a big critic of him for years as well. Unlike Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk is on an incredible redemption arc. While Ben Shapiro, who has 6.86 million YouTube subscribers, can barely get 30,000 views on his videos. Look at this. 3 hours ago, 14,000 views. 5 hours ago, 21,000. Okay, there you got 88,000 views. Okay, are you able to break 100,000 views on a video, Ben? Oh, there you go. 180,000 views on his full show. 160,000, 75,000. Oh, there you go. There you go. 449,000 views. But look at this. This is absolutely pathetic. There's an interesting phenomenon in the YouTube world. I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball. Whenever a YouTuber says something that upsets a lot of their audience, they will get some people who do unsubscribe. Usually it's not going to really affect the channel all that much. It might be tens of thousands. It might be hundreds of thousands of people who unsubscribe. But when you have millions of subscribers like Ben, it really isn't going to matter that much. But what does happen is the audience stays subscribed, but then just stops watching. And so for some reason, people just leave them in the subscription feed, but they stop going to the channel, they stop watching the videos. And so somebody like Ben, who has almost 7 million subscribers, is only getting 20,000, 50,000 views on videos. And much of Ben's success has been astroturfed. I'm not saying that he isn't a smart or a talented guy, but as Jeremy Boring admits, the Daily Wire invests millions of dollars into each of their hosts in order to make them popular.
I'm an integral part in building the brands of these hosts, of promoting the brands of these hosts. I spend millions of dollars of marketing behind every one of my hosts. I lose a lot of money on my hosts for a long time. Even the ones that are very, very big often make no money at all and cost a lot of money for the first several years that I work with them.
Me, on the other hand, I'm just a guy in my kitchen on a laptop who also writes books and makes awesome t-shirts available at markdice.com. And if you want to sponsor my channel and get some great exclusive content, some clips that you're not going to see here on YouTube because they're going to be way too sensitive, and some blog posts, click the link in the description below to join my Locals community for $5 a month. It's a private blog. It's owned by Rumble, so it is a free speech platform. It's a great way to support my channel and see some things that you're definitely not going to see here on YouTube or any of my other social media platforms. So click the link in the description below, head on over there, and check it out.